Hello YouTube, Jonathan800 here. On the official Hearts of Iron 4 Discord server, I was asked to playtest a mod from a player named Sheep that would provide an extra challenge when invading some countries, especially the UK. These challenges are activated in the decision screen and would give the AI and sometimes the player buffs to help them not be pushovers. So I decided to do an average Germany game to see the challenge. The effects were not that noticeable in Poland or France and they were easily taken care of. However, Sea Lion started seeing challenges. Now when the UK gets invaded, militia will spawn on neighboring states being threatened, with the AI able to provide itself temporary buffs while mobilizing. Some of these buffs will be accompanied by debuffs eventually, while others will last the whole conflict. All of the debuffs and event spawns resulted in a much harder Sea Lion. These compounded with a lack of supply made anything after establishing a beachhead a nightmare. As the front lines in southern England stalled, an invasion by Kesslering was made on the city of Hull. The landing went well, but since the landing zone neighbored a few states, a lot of militias spawned in which slowed me down. Then actual troops flooded in and halted me. The Royal Navy continued to convoy raid my troops and the North stalled. However, there was a chance I could make an offensive to link up the two beachheads, and it went poorly. With a ton of casualties, I gained only a couple provinces as the UK kept reinforcing tiles and me being unable to pin their troops. The lack of supply would prove to be the downfall of the North and an evacuation had to be made. Luckily 20 out of the 24 divisions made it out with 4 being overrun. I then decided to check how many militia the UK had, and they had a crap ton. If I remember correctly, these are 12 widths, and they are, along with the main army, getting multiple buffs. To deal with my problems, I set the Kriegsmarine surface fleet to convoy escort, and they actually managed to defeat the Royal Navy a few times, and actually survived the whole war. Air superiority was established after a long painful campaign, and with these factors and a cracked cipher, I went back on the offensive. The British held their ground in some areas, but finally some breakthroughs were being made. Sure, they weren't the largest, but they did encircle multiple troops. With entrenchment being less of a factor, I was able to push more, albeit with heavy casualties. Now something in the current version of the mod that I did not face, since I played a very early version, is Churchill never surrendering. Even after fighting on the beaches and on the landing grounds and in the fields and in the streets, if the island or a large part of it is occupied or starving, Churchill will flee to Canada to continue the war from the New World to liberate the Old. Now with multiple factors, you have the chance to intercept him and prevent him from getting there, but it is just RNG. The offensive managed to secure all of southern England and Wales, which shortened the front line. Both the enemy and I could concentrate our troops, which would result in even more costly battles. Despite still having a majority of the division being light tanks, the 35 width tank divisions proved to be the backbone of the Wehrmacht. Rommel and Guderian would try to make breakthroughs, but the supporting infantry would also assist greatly. What would tend to happen was an offensive was being made and the UK would funnel a ton of troops into the battle. Then an all-out offensive would be made across the whole front, and since all the troops were reinforcing into the main tank battle, breakthroughs by the infantry could be made, which could then prevent the battle with the tanks from having enemy reinforcements. Repeat with hundreds of thousands of casualties on both sides later, and a breakthrough has been achieved. Eventually, all of England would be occupied as Scotland was being threatened. With the attack on Newcastle slowly making progress, the British would capitulate along with all of the Allied powers, with America luckily not joining the war, which was becoming a real possibility. With most of Europe secured, Operation Barbarossa could commence a year late. The Soviets only get event troops when a state is getting cut off, but they still get the ability to give themselves buffs in some states. Another feature that was added after playing the mod were improvements to the Soviet AI along with population displacement and industry relocation mechanics. The Soviets will get a mission to do an attack across the front, If it captures a state, it will continue the offensive. If they do not complete the mission, the attack will stop. The population displacement will occur as the enemy pushes, letting the Soviets keep a pool of manpower even when losing territory. Same thing with industry relocation. With me being a bit lazy, I decided to battle plan across the whole front, getting lots of casualties, but pushing the Soviets back in most places. Odessa was given the state buff to gain even more defense, so my offensive would halt there despite me trying with many divisions. Unlike the UK, however, I could simply go around the problem state and encircle it. With the Odessa pocket secured, I simply moved Rommel and Manstein to the north and south respectively. Rommel would push towards Leningrad while Manstein would push for Stalingrad. The center was weak enough for the infantry to make a push to Moscow by themselves. The Battle of Leningrad was achieved through luck as I managed to pin Soviet troops from reinforcing it. That way, even with a lack of supplies, I was able to capture the city. A push to Rostov from Manstein further cut off many Soviet troops from reinforcing Stalingrad. With supply being much of an issue, the Battle of Stalingrad looked like it could fail before I could get the Führer directive complete. Pushing across rivers with undersupplied tanks is not great, but a breakthrough was managed in the south. What really could have angered me was Stalingrad getting a state modifier that would have made it impenetrable for the longest time. However, by crossing the river in the south, Manstein was able to attack Stalingrad without a river penalty, and the city was captured 2 days before the deadline. With my infantry being spread thin due to the very large pockets and the main cities being secured, I sent my tanks to clear out the Ukrainian and Moldovan pockets. The Ukrainian pocket was quickly taken out as 20-35 with tanks tend to inflict a lot of damage. With the escape route to Crimea being taken, the entire pocket was destroyed. The Odessa pocket was still being troublesome, so the Fallschirmjäger would come in to assist by deorging the enemy and preventing reinforcements. Also, when paratroopers land directly on top and behind of enemy troops, it counts as the enemy being encircled and allows them to be destroyed, even if they still technically control the land. With the remaining troops being cut off, there was no hope for over 1 million Soviet troops as the pocket was crushed. An encirclement in the center along with collab governments will prove to be the final nails in the coffin for the Soviets, and with that, the war. With the end of the war comes the end of the video, and I would like to thank Sheep, the mod creator, for letting me try out the early version of the mod, and all of you for watching the video. Before I head out though, there were still multiple features of the mod not shown, like the Volkssturm for Germany and Japan getting the UK treatment for invasion defense. Either way, if you made it this far, be sure to like and subscribe, you know the deal, and this is Jonathan 800 signing out.